It lies not in our power to love or hate, for will in us is overruled by fate. Welcome, everyone. This is the first recording of our small podcast, Me and Ranj.
Hey, people.
And I am Danner. Hi. We'd like to share with you our views on literature in general, but in this very first recording, we would be talking about love in poetry. Now, mind you, love in poetry, not love and poetry. They're quite different. We'll be talking about how love has been portrayed in poetry in general, and later on would be giving our own opinions and
On both topics.
Yes, and maybe draw out from our own experiences.
Okay.
Ranj, tell me, how would you like to start? What do you have to say?
Well, I would like to say the fact that this is going to be a very short introduction because this is obviously going to be a series.
Yes.
So we have planned out to talk about a few authors, poets of our choice, and they are Keats, Poe, Eliot, Shakespeare, Marlowe, and Dante.
Yes.
So as for today, we are just going to be covering them in general. However, later on, we will do each poet as a separate podcast.
Yes, and we might add even more poets to the list as far as it can go, because love is a broad field.
Very.
And so is poetry. So, how shall we start? Shall we start from the quote that I read from the beginning?
I think that's
right?
a nice intro.
So the introduction. In the introduction, I recited a line from
Marlowe.
Hero and Leander by Marlowe. It's a very short epillion by Marlowe. I think it's the only poem he wrote, if I'm not mistaken. The guy only wrote plays. Yeah, that's his only poem, apart from the shepherd thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that one, he goes deep into the love between Hero and Leander, and it's quite interesting that he mentions such kind of love in that stanza. He says, "It lies not in our power to love or hate." It's like as if there is another power controlling the fact whom we love and whom we do not love. I mean, I think everybody can relate to this. You see someone you like immediately or you just don't like, right? So, it lies not in our power to love or hate. The power that Marlowe is suggesting is fate, which inspires the person to love or not. And the last lines of that stanza is actually quite interesting. He says, "Where both deliberate, the love is slight. Whoever loved, that loved not at first sight." Now, Marlowe suggests that first sight seems to be the truest of love. What do you have to say about that, Ranj?
Judging by intuition, something you refer to a lot.
Yes, indeed.
Honestly, I feel like sometimes the first look kind of does tell. And this has been recited in many poems. And like, the first sight and everything has power.
Yeah.
And I think with this whole first sight thingy, it explains a lot about the whole fate aspect as well.
Yeah.
Because here, usually, as to this quote and many other poems, the first sight is the introduction to a very bigger connection. It sparks really quickly.
Yeah, the spark.
Yes, but the whole fate thing, I believe it's how much are the two parties participating and loving.
Yeah, like I remember the first time I recited that poem to you in a voice call.
I wasn't really gonna. The whole.
You did not go against it. It was not against it, but
I
you
went
were like
against it. Yeah, but the whole fate thingy, I feel like there are things that you could go against fate in some emotions. Honestly, Like I'm not disagreeing because this applies to many people, want it or not.
Yeah.
Circumstances change things, but I still believe, no matter how rough things can be, a love finds a way.
Yeah, like a friend of mine, if he listens to this, he would know he said this once.
Okay.
We were talking about astrology at the time and how some signs do not connect well, and he was like, "Fuck it, man! I'm gonna break the astrological system." I was like, "Yeah, man, go for it."
That's the spirit.
Yeah, that's the spirit. That's the spirit. But
that's how you should go against.
You should always find a way. So the first poem was by Marlowe. Like, it's very interesting what Marlowe says about love. Like, this guy this guy has been known to be very logical at a time where people
And
were not. Yes,
him saying such thing
such thing is
is
big,
is a
right?
mic drop for
It's a
that
mic drop.
aspect.
Yeah, it's a mic drop for that poet. Like Marlowe would
You
never
wouldn't
dabbled.
expect something
Yeah,
like this
he
from
never
him.
dabbled. He never dabbled in terms of love, but here he's expressing something very deep. But dude, shall we go from the classics to the modern, or from modern to the classics?
I honestly just however it comes.
Right, man? Well, since we're dabbling in Marlowe, how about we move on to Shakespeare? Right? Put in some sonnets there.
Okay,
Some
so
little songs.
one of the sonnets that really like is a beautiful one
Yeah?
would be Sonnet 130.
Okay.
This sonnet is just like Shakespeare portrays love exquisitely.
Okay, of course he does.
However, in Sonnet 130, it's quite different if you compare it to like most of his works.
Uh-huh.
Even compared to many romantic and love poems.
How so? Is it in terms of structure or?
Well, in terms of structure, it's not something I really want to dwell in right now.
Okay.
But the Sonnet 130 talks. It really does not. It shows the lover's flaw. Like he compares that how her cheeks are not as red as you might think. He compares how the hair on her head is like wires.
Beautiful.
And how her breath is not nice.
Okay.
But despite all of this, in the conclusion, he says that, and yet by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she believe with false compare. Like everything she is. For with the flaws, he still accepts.
He still accepts it. He like.
So I don't know if I interpreted the last line wrong. I mean, but like that's how I actually got it. Like, despite all of these flaws,
Yeah, that's my.
It's her that he wants.
Like it's very interesting. This poem, like he starts.
This poem goes against all the
classical
love
values, right?
love values.
He's like in the very beginning, he's mean. He's very mean.
He's mean, but like in the conclusion.
But in the conclusion, he's like. And yet, by heaven, he swears by heaven.
Like, I think my love is rare.
Yeah, right. As any.
So I don't know if I interpreted that wrong, but that's
not really, man. With false compare. I mean, yeah, man. He dabbled well there.
That's a poem that really is very catchy. Since
exactly.
It's not like just praising the lover. It's just not like just praising her beauty. It's actually pinpointing out her flaws.
Yeah,
and in the end. With all those flaws, I love you.
Yeah, I mean, we're poets too. I mean, when we write, we usually try to compliment the girl, right?
Yes, but here it's a different story.
It's a different story. He's
but I believe, this is my opinion, I believe this is actually one of the most beautiful poems that a poet can write for a girl.
Exactly, man, exactly. I
like
totally
showing
agree.
flaws like this and still, like, the person would still feel the love.
Yeah, man. I mean, even
it's like, yeah.
This is like he's basically saying, even if you go very ugly, even if you're this and that, I still
ugly.
love you,
Yeah,
man.
if you go against
right?
the ugly for the whole standards.
Yeah, man. I would really like to relate that to another sonnet of his, like Sonnet 116.
Okay.
Like it's very interesting. One line he says, "Love is not love, which alters when alteration finds." Now that's basically it, right?
When it changes.
Yeah, man. He is so.
There's one other sonnet I like to shed light upon, and it's the Sonnet 141.
Okay.
It says, "In faith, I do not love thee with mine eyes, for they in thee 1,000 errors note." Honestly, I feel like this is very well connected to the Sonnet 130.
Yeah.
He doesn't trust his eyes to love because like even look at this. Then the standards of society change when celebrities change.
Yes, indeed.
Right now, you know,
we have the Kardashians.
you have the Kardashians. You have these people become standards. Whatever somebody famous does something, that thing becomes a standard.
It does.
And now that standard does not match with everybody's like reality, and this is like. For example, you find some, and it has always been said, beauty is subjective.
It is very much so.
He does not trust his eyes for this.
No.
He does not trust, because he knows, like, because even the eyes are deceived by the standards.
Yeah,
but it's what remains is the heart and the soul.
This is very meditative.
Like it's, despite all of this, me even seeing your flaws and even pinpointing your flaws, I still love you by heart and soul.
Yeah, like that's beautiful.
That is, I believe, like, honestly, I don't know what people did in the Romantic period. I don't know, like, Shakespeare existed with these sonnets, and they wrote poems. Seriously, Wordsworth wrote lyrical ballads.
Lyrical ballads.
What did he do?
We don't know.
What did he do?
Nobody knows, man. Nobody knows.
On Wordsworth, I know you really critical about him.
Yes, very much.
I respect his simplicity when it comes to poetry.
Yeah, man.
I respect something
respectable.
like he did, for example, translating Dante's Divine Comedy,
Yeah,
because he did a perfect translation,
Mm-hmm.
no doubt in there. But however, I don't know what his goal was with nature. كان نبي بدال نبي بدال
بالضبط. Like legit, man.
Every poem, there's just I have respect for his simplicity, because he is
Yeah.
one of the poets that he can convey big emotions with simple
Simple words, yeah.
But I feel like his simplicity became too much. I don't
It
know.
really did. Like,
For example, take
No.
Keats for example. He is raw. He is very raw with the
With his
emotion.
emotions,
Yeah, like,
he
the word
brings it
choice.
out.
The word choice. You know, just like in Keats, perfectly matches the emotion.
they do. They perfectly match the emotion. Like, Keats never wastes a word.
Yes.
He does not waste
But
a word.
Wordsworth is, I don't know, his economy of words was just
Yeah, man. Yeah. I get
weak.
it. Like, I sometimes wonder why Coleridge even considered writing with him.
Okay,
like, because
that is just, I don't know, that is
Coleridge-
tough.
Really, because Coleridge is such a capable writer. I mean, he was not only a poet, he was a lecturer, he was a philosopher. The guy was smart. Like, I don't get it, how he found Wordsworth worthy.
People have this, even in our
Yeah,
studies in literature, we have this thing that we focus so much on when these things started, you know,
Yes.
when romanticism started, and when it ended.
Exactly.
As we said, these things were actually never, I don't know, honestly, when romanticism, Shakespeare created romanticism. Not even that,
Exactly.
just old myth tales had romanticism.
Exactly, man.
Like the ideas always existed. Like look, keep it with the, like, go with the genesis, like when these things started.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, dwelling with when they ended is actually a waste of time.
It is a waste of time. Like, if you remember back, like this semester in class, I got up once and said, like, come on, sir, tell us the difference between the Romantic period and the Renaissance. I mean,
They were the same ideology
they were the
in
same
many
ideology.
contexts.
On so many levels, they were the same. But I believe we make these distinctions
To classify,
yes, to classify,
to a diversity. Yeah.
Exactly, to have a diversity, man. Like, that's basically it. Now, since we've mentioned Keats, I believe we should bring a poem of his, right? We should totally move on to Keats. But seriously, like, Shakespeare,
Romantic.
We should, yeah,
Romantic.
like, label him a romantic.
No, we will talk about, of course, this is just to give
Yes.
an inside introduction. Later on, we will go on each poet in detail.
specifically in detail. Yeah,
Probably even study the structure.
yeah, the structure too. But we would really like to focus on what the poets were trying to say, which is basically what matters.
Okay, so in this
Yeah,
one of
so-
Keats, you had
so
this
Keats-
line.
Keats, I marked this line because it's very important. Like, he's trying to portray how it feels to be with someone, how it should be.
Yeah.
Now,
Simple, I believe.
like, yes, exactly. If there is one poet that can summarize the Romantic period's emotions, right? It's Keats. Now, it's very hard to pick a poem by Keats to really study. Like, that guy was emotional. That guy was very
Every poem is like just a
yeah, man. Every poem is like
just
But
emotions.
these 4 lines are a must. Like from his epic, Endymion,
Okay.
a poetic romance. He titled it like that, a poetic romance.
Now that's something. If he titled it like
Yeah,
that,
man, right?
it
I
is
mean,
something.
It is something. He writes. He starts like this. He says, "A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep a bower quiet for us and asleep."
No, that is heavy.
Very heavy.
That is heavy. Like the love never dies.
Never dies. It never dies. He's like a thing of beauty.
How much do you agree with this?
A lot, man, a lot. Like, I read this when I was like 17, and it hit.
It still haunts you, huh?
It still haunts me. Comes back to my dreams, man. It's really good. Like, he's like, but still will keep. Like, even if
That
the beauty,
the structurally,
Yeah, man.
that but
Yeah,
right
man.
there, it's just it's
like, even when the beauty passes into nothingness, we will still keep a bower quiet for us and asleep. Goals, relationship goals, man. he would still keep that.
I honestly, like, this guy was just heavy.
This guy was very heavy.
Was
like
heavy.
like the other day.
Like it's a shame because like there's one flaw of him which I kind of because when you read his poems, it's always so personal.
Very personal.
That's the problem why he's not really studied.
Yeah, that's
Because
one point.
things like you find objectivity in other poets, but
You do.
him is just raw
feelings.
Keats, raw Keats.
Exactly. Something made him feel bad.
Like you
because I
have
wrote
to
about
know.
it.
I honestly think you have to know full biography of him,
Exactly.
and in order to because even in academic studies, most things that related to the personal life, because like
Exactly,
usually
man.
you have to consider a formalistic approach
Yes,
in
yes.
literature.
By the way, I suggest for those who are interested in Keats, there's a movie called Bright Star.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful movie about his life. Like it's not very accurate. It's not.
It shows the beauty,
Yeah,
though.
but it shows the beauty of
Yeah.
how he lived and the things he faced. I think we should not leave Keats so soon. Because,
Of course not.
Because there's another poem. It's a sonnet, I believe, called
Uh-huh.
Bright Star. Let me see if I can find it. Like that poem really, really sums up Keats in terms of style, right? In terms of his mastery over words.
Keats never wasted words.
Never wasted
That's a
words.
Fact.
That's a fact.
That's
Never
a fact.
wasted. Like
When you read
really,
his poems, everything is in place. You know, everything is structured perfectly.
Yeah, man. Like this one he wrote, Bright Star. It's a sonnet, I believe. The title is Bright Star, would I were steadfast as thou art. Now it's very interesting how he's trying to imitate Shakespeare, if I may say so. Now I'm not saying this as a fact, but he's really trying.
He shows the signs.
Yeah, he shows the signs. Like this one is a sonnet. It really shows Shakespeare there. He says, "Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art, not in lone splendor hung aloft the night."
Honestly, leave the bright star alone. Some people would think this was Shakespeare.
Exactly, exactly. man.
That's
Like,
the style. That's
show this to someone.
honestly right here. I have the same on the same structure on the same thing that you see.
Yeah.
This is it. It's the same structure. That
Same 141. Yeah, man, it's the same. Like he says in faith, and Keats says bright star.
like
Yeah.
even punctuation wise, they look really really the same.
Like, but in the conclusion, he really shows his love, his feelings towards this girl that he liked. It's like he says, "Still, still to hear her tender taken breath, and so live ever, or else swoon to death."
This has a very beautiful connection to the four lines that you just read from Endymion. It's like honestly, just like every poet has this thingy, I believe, opinion. They create this universe.
Yeah.
They have this universe with like, even subconsciously, sometimes the poems just connect with each other. Like sometimes it's not their intention, but their poems become like the second part of the third part of the another.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
They're
this
connected.
exactly looks like another part to the Endymion.
I so agree, especially for Keats. This is true because his poems, like we said, are very personal. Since they're personal,
They
they are
only
connected.
they
connected.
go on,
like
on
it's
one wave.
undeniable
Yes.
how connected they could be.
Shall we move on to
Yeah,
Poe?
we should no. Let's leave Poe for now.
Okay.
Let's go for Dante.
Okay.
How about Dante, right? Like
Beatrice.
Beatrice, man. Beatrice, man.
Oh my
That girl.
God.
That girl has.
He had it all. She had it all. You know what I mean?
She
Honestly,
had
the guy went through hell,
through hell.
through cleansing
Through
and to
cleansing.
heaven, and she was still.
He
wanted
wanted the girl. He still wanted Beatrice. Now that's very beautiful. That's dedication.
That is commitment right
that
there.
is commitment right there, man.
Honestly, like
Commitment.
it's like just despite all the allegories that you could find in Dante's Divine Comedy, and even in his like, so
Yes.
because I'm not here. You focus on the sonnets, but however, I'm trying to like from the aspect that how much this like that book is huge. Divine Comedy is big,
It's big.
and all that dedication, all that concept, and all that
Yeah, man.
love that she was a motive.
Yes, she was a motive.
Big one. She honestly, she did not. I don't because I didn't read all of it, but
Okay.
I don't think she was as like
Aware?
no. She wasn't as apparent, like and evident as Virgil
Okay.
but she had the weight of him.
She did.
Because
She
everything, if you like take Divine Comedy and turn it into many layers,
Yes.
this poem was one layer is perfectly dedicated to Beatrice. Beatrice.
It is dedicated to her.
Beatrice, Beatrice, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, man. Like we talk about Dante a lot, but I think one of the reasons he brings Virgil to guide him through hell and to heaven.
I believe
yeah.
everybody has a couple of idols.
Yeah, we all have a couple of idols, but the reason he brings Virgil there, he's asking out for help. He's like, Virgil, oh, come help me through this
Because
pain.
Virgil was amazing.
He was
He
amazing,
is
that guy.
big.
Like, we'll talk about Virgil in the future,
Yeah,
hopefully.
hopefully.
At some point we will analyze him too, but for now, let's leave it at that. Like, Dante...
If Dante sees Virgil as like, Virgil is something.
Exactly.
As simple as that.
Exactly, legit, man.
Because
legit.
Dante is just...
But it's quite interesting. Now, the Divine Comedy is not directly influenced by Beatrice.
No, but like one
But
layer is directly towards
She is, yes, undeniable.
Even like just the whole concept, even if it's because it is.
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
think about
No,
it,
no,
it is
undeniable.
Beatrice is the whole concept of
She
it.
is a motive. But Dante wrote a book of prose and poetry titled La Vita Nuova,
Okay.
The New Life. And in that book, he writes, in that book, which is my memory, on the first page, that is the chapter when I first met you, appears the words, here begins a new life. Now this
That
is
is-
the
yeah.
perfect introduction to the Divine Comedy. Read this before you read the Divine Comedy. Like, really, man. This is how it goes.
Now
It's
the Divine
beautiful.
Comedy needs a lot of
A lot
study.
of attention. Like, we're just
Yeah, this
scanning.
is
We're just-
skim and scan on
right,
these
skim
things
and
just as an
scanning.
introduction.
Yeah, but Dante deserves much more.
Now Dante is, I feel, especially in Kurdistan.
Yeah,
That's what I feel
yeah,
like
exactly.
because he's just not known. Like
Not known that well. I mean, we have translations.
we have translations, but
Yeah.
I never really blame people for not touching upon some classics.
Of course.
Because you can't expect someone to casually read Dante and understand all the allusions.
Of course not. Of course not.
King Midas and Arachne, all of these guys are there, and if you don't
Yeah.
have great mythological
Background.
you don't understand
Yeah,
anything.
you need biblical background, mythological background,
Historical background of-
like Dante
of-
has
yes.
depth. This guy, you cannot just read through
But
him for pleasure.
our point is, despite all this depth,
The simple,
Beatrice is still there.
Beatrice is still there. She is.
Ach, Beatrice. That's the thing with him.
Yeah, that's the thing with Dante.
Next
So-
on the list, who shall we move on?
Yeah,
Do you
well-
still want to dwell on him?
Well, you know what? Let's leave Poe for the last.
Okay.
Right before Poe, we're gonna be talking about T.S. Eliot.
Oh god,
Oh,
heavy, huh?
heavy, very heavy, man. Like each
The love
time-
song of J. Alfred.
J. Alfred
Yeah.
Prufrock. J. Alfred
That
Prufrock.
is just
We're gonna be looking
honestly.
through that one.
I feel
man.
like this poem is something that within despair, especially for males,
yes.
especially for males, in their lives, I feel like it's not. You don't. I don't think you need to be middle aged for this
No.
because that's how that's the theme of it.
That's
Like,
the theme, but
he went through. It was perfectly portrayed. The thought. The coffee and the breakfast in the morning
yes,
that
man.
make him question.
exactly.
That is just something. And like you had
Yeah.
some excerpts. to
Like,
read, like
I would really like to connect this poem to Keats's Ode to a Nightingale, the last
okay,
stanza. Remember the one I showed you?
Yes.
Yeah, man.
The questioning.
Yeah, right. We're gonna be talking about this
Yes.
for now. Now the opening. The opening is beautiful. The opening does not only portray a man in love; it also portrays the 20s, right?
Not
the early
only-
20th
just
century.
basically the reality. Basically
Exactly.
the reality of a failure. Like
Yes, of a failure in love.
Yes. And this is the lines that.
So, yes. So he starts off. He says, "Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient rice upon a table."
It shows like these. There's so much simplicity
So
to
much
this,
simplicity.
and how this simplicity can become very toxic.
Very toxic.
Because it's the little details, the little thoughts that become, that makes you overthing. It's the little thing that has been done.
Exactly.
And connecting this
No, before we connect it to
yeah.
Keats,
Okay.
I'd like to move on to one stanza that's actually very connected to Keats. He's like, wait, let me find it. It's the last one.
breakfast thingy, I think it wasn't it on the
The breakfast, of course, but the last one, like the one I showed you about the mermaids, he says, I have heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. Now this is the end of, he's accepting that the mermaids will not sing to him anymore.
He's leaving, and this poem, just like I would. This has a very very beautiful Gatsby vibe, if I'm not wrong.
It does.
Because it kind of I can't read this poem and not think about the Jazz Age.
Right? Because it was during that time, man. This was written
Honestly,
in
not
the 20s.
honestly.
It was written in 1910.
Because look
I
at
believe.
this. Look at this. Like if you watch the movie The Great Gatsby. Honestly, you can see so many characters that the camera just doesn't focus on the end.
No, no, of course not.
You know, like the mermaids, they don't sing for him anymore.
Yeah.
Think about it. If it was in a Gatsby concept, setting, and he would have actually had some money, and how the circumstances would have changed, because he is poor.
Yeah, he is. In the first stanza, that he makes that certain. He says, one night cheap hotels. In one night cheap
he
hotels.
is
That's what he
very
says.
poor.
Yeah.
And honestly, Eliot just established the fact just established the realism so beautifully in this poem.
He does.
And then read the breakfast part, because
breakfast
I
part.
love to connect the
Connect it
breakfast
to
part
the
to
last
this,
stanza.
to this last
Okay,
stanza.
Well, he says, let me find that if I'm not mistaken. It's he says before the taking of toast and tea. It's that part, right?
Yes, it's such a beauty. You know why it's so relatable? Because
Yeah.
it's something we all have been sitting like every morning. You wake up.
Yeah,
you know,
man.
for those who eat breakfast, I honestly don't. But like, for those who eat breakfast and they look, have you never just looked at your cup of tea and
right?
just pondered
A lot of ideas.
so many? And that makes so much more sense, especially when you are not feeling good.
Yeah. So the stanza is a bit long. I'm just gonna read the end of it.
Just read the end of
He
it.
says, "Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of toast and tea."
That is so
true.
That is such a perfect blend into
Yeah,
realism
man.
with despair. Like, to that, should I read all the stanza?
The last stanza is very interesting. Like, read it all, man. Read it all.
It
Read
says, Keats says in the last stanza of the Nightingale, "Forlorn, the very word is like a bell to toll me back from thee to my sole self. Adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well as she is famed to do, deceiving elf. Adieu, adieu, thy plaintive anthem fates, past the near meadows, over the still streams, up the hillside, and now 'tis buried deep in the next valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music? Do I wake or sleep?" Now this, I know it kind of sounds very, very far from this, from what the TSL did.
Not
You know,
really. I'm gonna connect it back right now for you.
because like the whole situation, because it's like, honestly, if you read this whole breakfast section and Eliot and the love song, it shows, do you really want to start your day? Do you really want to start your day despite all of this mess
Day
on you,
or
despite
not.
all of this burden on you?
Yeah, right.
And then Keats, it says,
He's like,
do I wake up?
Do I wake up?
Or
Or
is that-
should I sleep?
Yes.
Like, maybe he meant death.
No,
by
no, no.
sleep,
Of
maybe.
course.
We're not
But
talking
like,
about that.
But like it's open
Like
for analysis. It's open for
right?
interpretations.
Like,
that's
if we establish this, like in the mornings when we wake up and we're trying to,
it's your choice to go or not.
It's your choice to go or not. And now, and
But
Keats here,
we like I really wanna just make this like this point appreciated.
okay,
The fact that Eliot must be appreciated in terms of realism.
yeah, he should
Because
he must be, man.
the despair in this
he
point.
He won the Nobel Prize in literature. He won, I think, before Hemingway. He won it. The year before Hemingway. I think if I'm not-
Deserves it.
Yeah, right. He deserved it, man.
Deserves it.
Dude. He deserved it a lot. Like, we should talk about his views on Dante when we do the podcast.
We will.
Yeah, man. Like, we'll put that in the future.
You wanted to give another thing on?
Yeah. Well,
on Keats and Eliot?
Keats, like, mic dropped. Right?
Uh-huh.
He did his
Eliot
mic drop.
did another mic
Eliot
drop.
did another mic drop. The whole place is filled with mics here, people.
This is just.
This is just
It
an
needs to be
overview, but I
considered.
think it's quite interesting to note that Lewis Carroll, although he lived before Eliot,
Yeah, uh-huh.
he would agree with what Eliot said about the mornings, because he said, "Why sometimes I have believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast."
Imagine how heavy
How heavy,
this is. Like,
right?
just honestly, this shows, and this is because obviously when you look at Eliot, he looks depressing.
Yeah,
He
man.
is depressed.
He is depressed, man.
These, like, was said in some points.
Yeah.
To be a poet is a curse.
Yeah, oh, in some points it is, man.
No, in some points it's usually.
Usually is.
Usually
right?
it is a
You know,
curse.
like I mentioned earlier, like I said poets, when they write poetry, they drink tea and
They
smoke.
just-
You said no, they drink wine.
They drink wine.
Yeah,
But
that's it.
and this shows an aspect that maybe many people overlook, and it's the psychological aspect.
Yeah, man.
Because the realism he has put in the love song of
Alfred Prufrock.
Alfred Prufrock is something he actually made it heavy for him to start his day.
Yes.
And that is something I have not seen in many poems.
No, it's unique, very unique.
It's the realism, the blending is very unique.
Like, we can sense how the other poets are going through hard times for simply being rejected, right, man? I mean, but Eliot mentions another dimension that we don't know, like the fact that do you even want to wake up anymore, right? Like, this is big deal.
I know.
This is big deal.
And
Like,
who do you have left on them? Because I don't want to dwell into these things so in detail, because
Yeah,
like
because- yeah,
we want to
we'll be
talk about them in detail later. Yeah, in depth
big
detail.
details, man. Like,
Well, we
So,
have
we have Polef, I
did
believe.
you-
The
yeah, we
OG.
did Marlowe, the OG.
Yeah, right?
We have Poe left.
We have Polef.
Well, in Poe, I chose 2 poems to if we like talk about. Well, one
Okay.
of them is the Raven.
The Raven.
But as for now, for a very, very more condensed, like the Raven is honestly about love and everything. But like for now, I just want to touch upon Annabel Lee.
Yeah, you wrote a whole essay about it.
I wrote a
It's
whole
like
essay.
4,000 words, man.
Yes, and I will talk to my teacher about it. For this should be my last year's
Thesis, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have Annabel Lee.
Okay, Annabel Lee.
Now just look at the title. Honestly, just so fluent. Just-
Annabel
Annabel
Lee.
Lee.
Beautiful.
Now, we all know
Gothic.
whoever knows Poe, they knew he was not right.
He was not.
He had one of the most tragic lives. Honestly.
Yeah.
The way you read his biography,
Yeah, man.
and you will realize
His
that
his death is very mysterious, man.
his death is mysterious,
Very
like goals, but goals, but it was depressing.
Yeah, man. A lot.
So, in Poe, honestly, the poem is very straightforward in Annabel Lee.
Okay.
I'm not
How-
saying
how-
there is no.
How does he start?
Well, he starts as this is the first stanza.
Okay.
It says, "It was many and many a year ago in
Mm-hmm.
a kingdom by the sea,
Okay.
that a maiden lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee."
Immediate introduction. Okay.
Yes, immediate introduction. And it
okay.
says, "And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me."
Beautiful.
Now this poem is so straightforward with
It
each
is.
stanza. Like in the second stanza, it says, "I was a child and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea.
Okay.
But we loved with a love that was more than love." Now this is I've seen people like quoting this as a tattoo.
Wow.
This
Wow.
is just some like
Big deal.
we know there are some poets that when they loved, it was not normal.
No.
Poe-
Their love was not
Yes.
like.
Poe
Yeah,
is,
right.
for example. Now, saying that we loved with a love that we're more in love, and by the way, I'm not saying this poem has no analysis or interpretation, because the kingdom by the sea, these things all become symbolism.
Of course.
But-
Which is your area.
Which, but honestly, this I just wanna. I don't have much to dwell on that for right now, but I just want to show his simplicity towards the thing.
Right.
Because even when he is in despair, even when he is very, very, how to say, he's in a very bad state. However, despite the Raven being written before his wife died, because
Okay.
we can't say it will all linked to that.
Okay.
But there are analysis and then the relations that he wrote this for previous lovers and stuff like that.
Yeah, man.
Even in showing in The Raven, he has a complex system. However, you understand the pain. You understand the imagery he uses makes it very obvious and evident on how
Okay.
he views on love, how he portrays the grief of losing love.
Yeah, that's
That's
great,
his
man.
specialty. Like
It's like,
that's
I always say emotions are like lenses, and for us to give the lens that we see the world with, is poetry is one of the ways. Now, Poe is giving you the lens with which he sees that love.
you with Dracula, which we will
Yeah,
at
right.
some point come
we
upon.
will come upon
Dracula
that.
is a must.
Oh, we will do Dracula. But let's not forget to mention one of the stanzas from this poem. It's very interesting. He blames the angels. Right?
Poe
What do
has
you
a
have to say
thing
about
with
that?
angels.
Right? He says the angels not half so happy in heaven went envying her and me. Now that's quite interesting. He doesn't say the demons or the devil. He says the angels.
No, I believe he's just. This is just a more emphasis on the love he had for they had for each other.
Okay.
To whomever, because I don't want to jump into any conclusion. Like we know he had lovers. We know he was dedicated to. Wow, I forgot her name. But anyway, but like he like I said, he loved with a love that was more than love.
More than
Just from his own
that's-
stanza.
that's the greatest
And
line.
this shows how he is so certain that angels would be jealous of them.
Yeah, man. That's
Now
a lot.
that is not just a lot. That is beauty right there.
And the last stanza, like he says, and the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee.
It's honestly Annabel Lee to me, without giving it any more critical analysis, would be just simply praising love.
Yeah, he is.
Your lover.
He's
As
this is
simple
like,
as that. You don't need like I personally love Poe and I personally love to critically analyze everything, but that's something I would just leave there. Like just be the simplicity you are.
Do you think we can connect this back to Keats, the stars and the stars never rise? Like two
I mean,
bright stars?
Keats had a thing for stars, but
did,
like,
right?
like I said, leave that Annabel Lee alone, like that, because it's a poem that I think, if you connect it back to logic,
Okay.
it's kind of ruining the weight of it.
It does.
Yeah,
Like,
because it's so simple, it's so pure, it's so direct
you
towards
don't wanna take its
yeah,
guts out.
Yeah, you don't need to do it because
No.
the only thing you will get is,
Yeah, that-
is a class full of debates on emotions and logic, and
That's
then
it.
you don't reach a conclusion.
You get nothing. We've seen stuff
We've
like that.
seen stuff. We have gone through that, and honestly, it's a poem
No, we
to
don't
just to
wanna-
adore.
We don't want to go back there again, but this
And
poem,
put it behind glass and
Yes.
just adore it.
Yeah, just
Don't
adore
let it fade
put
away.
it there, man. Just put it there. Like it's beautiful, and how these poets portrayed their love. It's like I've noticed in our generation, especially, like love is kind of frowned upon. Like when you see someone in love, they're like,
You
I
lost
know.
something. You are
Yeah.
losing. You're missing out on many
you're missing
fun.
out.
Yeah?
Yeah, right.
Why do you miss out? Why do you lose?
miss out if you love someone? I don't get.
How do you
that.
connect? How do you feel about all of these? The poets that we have discussed and that we will even cover more. How do you connect with their poetry? How do you? how far do you? Because me, I'm my type. I'm gothism, horror, and stuff like that.
Anything symbolic.
Anything symbolic, along with anything symbolic. And you are with the realism of the situation.
Yeah.
Because I've always seen you. I've seen you're born as a playwright.
Thank you.
You're born because
Thank
even in your stories, the dialogue you put in, they show you wanna portray this essence of love and reality.
Yes.
Through the dialogues. I've read things of you, and you do portray them very nicely.
Thank
So
you.
how do you like go along? How much do you agree with these
Well-
poets? And like you don't your opinions.
Well, starting off with since playwriting is my thing.
Yeah. So you are the playwright. Like
Yeah,
I
man.
trust you with theater.
Yeah, and I trust you with poetry,
Yes.
my good sir. Well, I'd really like to start with Marlowe. I mean, Marlowe, his plays are not about love. He
Oh,
does
yeah,
not,
I know.
Right? He does not.
Like just take Faustus for example.
Right?
It shows that
Faustus.
it's like there we are not, but we must mention the fact that we are not saying he never touched
never
upon.
touched it. Of course, there are love elements
Because
in his.
even in Marlowe, in Foster's, like it's touched upon.
Yeah,
It's a motive.
It is. Like even in Tamburlaine the
Like
Great.
if you think about it, even in poems dedicated to love, not dedicated to logic. I'm sorry.
Yes, yes.
There is this. There is the aspect of emotion ruining logic. So it's
Exactly.
always they're always hands into hand.
It always has it with that. So the reason I mentioned Marlowe is the fact that that stanza that we read in the very beginning, which says, "If it lies not in our power to love or hate," like I've been fascinated. Like I usually ask this question. I'm like,
I've seen you dwelling trying to find the answer to
the
how
answer
to
is-
control fate.
Right?
Like,
Exactly, man. Exactly. It's like what are the criteria? Like how do you decide if you love someone or not? How does that spark happen? That spark, right? So Marlowe seems to be giving me an answer. That's how I connect with him on this level.
yeah,
he
that-
gives the answer. He
yeah,
says fate.
I know fate, but like, I feel like you just there's a part of you that does. It's just like me doesn't
Yeah,
agree with that fully.
exactly. No,
Because honestly, I can't. It doesn't. It's the perfect example. Like I know what he's saying,
Yeah, of
and I'm
course.
not disagreeing.
No, of course.
But I don't agree with it in the terms for like of love itself.
Oh well, maybe at that time, Marlowe had that as the best answer. You never know.
No, I'm not saying it's not a good answer. It's a
but
perfect example.
Personally, I do believe that we can somehow change our fate. Somehow we can work with it. Shape it.
Yeah, yeah.
You could struggle.
The butterfly effect.
Exactly, the butterfly.
Change the small details,
Exactly.
get different outcomes.
Exactly, right? I've actually experimented with this a couple of times,
Uh-huh.
but it's
شتزوء
not.
كدوة. شتزوء كدوة.
Voilà,
خطأ. Yeah.
but the thing is, fate so far seems to be a relatively good answer. Now, moving on to Shakespeare, and Shakespeare, I love Shakespeare, but I'm still also.
Sometimes he's just not giving
Yeah,
answers.
he's not giving answers. He's like.
He's too blind.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
He's like
just.
he just feels deep emotions and.
I feel like that. I'm actually very happy for Shakespeare. You know,
Same.
like he never felt the fucked upness.
He never did.
Yeah, he never went through the
He had his wife, he was good.
Judging by his sonnets.
Yeah, man.
You see doubts and stuff. You see, but he was so into like he was so stabilized.
Stabilized, exactly. The man was stabilized. That's undeniable. So I don't have much to say about Shakespeare, but I really love his sonnet 116 when he says, "Love is not love which alters when alteration finds."
That is very true. Now I think that is one of his answers to a situation.
think
Like
that poem-
it goes next to the Marlowe's.
Exactly. It has Marlowe's weight. Now, to me, like I love Shakespeare. I study Shakespeare. I read Shakespeare constantly, but to me, Marlowe is always on top.
No, I know. I
Yeah,
know,
right.
I've seen
So with that sonnet, Shakespeare kind of reaches Marlowe's level.
yeah.
Marlowe's level in terms of language and expression. So the other poet is Keats that I really connect with, especially
Keats. I think
Yeah,
if
man.
you just, I feel like to understand Keats, you have to have gone through
something similar to him, man.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have gone to something similar to him, like especially that last stanza that we read from the Nightingale. Now that is very good. It's like he says, "Until
wake or sleep?
Yeah, exactly. He's like,
should I move on or should I
move on?
slumber?
Should I slumber? Right?
Yes.
But he leaves you with a question. He leaves you with a question. Now, I have an interesting theory.
Uh-huh.
This theory connects T.S. Eliot to Keats. He's like, now Eliot in his poem J. Alfred Prufrock, he tries to ask you a question, but he still does not show us what the question is.
He gives you the situation. He gives you the situation.
But he even says, "Oh, do not ask what is it. Let us go and make our visit." Right? He doesn't give you the question.
That shows the perfect mentality of the man
does.
of Prufrock.
It does. So my theory is that question is what Keats asked, saying, "Should I wake or sleep?" Like maybe that's the question. Maybe that is the big question that even a man like J. Alfred would ask himself when he's 35. There's a middle spot in his head. He would
These
say,
things
"Should I
become
sleep?"
not only like they just they're even an eye of the scope of society on the man.
Exactly. You know what's depressing about Keats there in that stanza? He's like, he has reached a conclusion. He knows he's alone now. The girl has left him. He's alone now. There is no her anymore. She deceived him.
He is stuck.
But he is stuck. He gives you a conclusion. I am forlorn.
It's like he gives you the conclusion for you, but he's like, this is not my conclusion. This is for you.
Exactly. But in the end, he's like, okay, I'm alone now. It's like a bell to toll me back from thee to my soul self. This loneliness that you've left me. But still, should I wake or sleep?
Yeah.
Fled is that music. Now it's very interesting. Those two, when you connect them back, like
They do make sense. They do make
a
bridges.
lot of
Okay,
sense. Yeah,
who
they
else
make a lot
is
of
there?
sense.
You have Dante
We
and
have Dante
Poe.
and Poe. Now Dante is like I spiritually connect to Dante. It's
Honestly,
like,
you can't. Don't even speak about him. Just go on. Go to Poe. Go to Poe.
Let's go to Poe. Now Poe.
Yeah.
We've had our rough patches about Poe, man.
Yeah. We have had
I mean,
patches on
like
Poe.
I like the guy, but you know, his some of his poems are.
No. Like honestly, just I've always said this. Just because you love someone, an author, doesn't mean everything he writes is amazing.
Exactly,
because-
I so agree. So Poe,
But in terms of these,
in terms of love in poetry, in terms of that, he portrays it.
Not only he wrote an essay on why he wrote and how he wrote The Raven.
Now that's interesting.
And honestly, one of the most beautiful things he says in this essay, the academic essay of his, he says there's
what?
this thing he mentions, and he talks about how what the main theme of poetry might be.
Okay.
And he mentions the death then of a beautiful woman is unquestionably the most poetical topic in the world, and equally is it beyond doubt that the lips best suited for such topic are those of a bereaved lover.
Yes.
Now that is, he didn't say this as an opinion. This is a fact. He
This is
mic
fact.
dropped this
Yeah, he
on
mic
his
dropped
essay.
it, man.
Now, if anybody is interested to read where he has said this, it's an essay by Poe, titled "The Philosophy of Composition." It was published
It's
in
a very good essay.
1846. Now, this essay, for whoever is interested to understand how Poe wrote The Raven mostly and his poems, and give an insight, it's that essay.
I think he mentions how he writes short stories too in that.
This is the same thing where he connects the unity effect,
The
which
unity
is
effect,
which is
yeah,
very important, which
very
is what Poe is all about.
Yes.
It's a must read.
It is a must read. Like,
However, it is annoying, but like it is a must read. It's poet. He is supposed to be annoying.
Exactly, man. Like for anyone interested in writing poetry and essays in general, this essay is a must. It's like a must read.
So that's pretty much it.
Like
So
that's pretty much it. Hey, what about you, man? Like, how do you connect them back to yourself?
I'm guys. For some situations, I just like to sit and feel them. Like just sit and enjoy the poem.
Yeah, right.
However, you know me, I honestly like relate to Poe a lot.
Okay.
But the whole that love song of
Alfred
Prufrock is just.
Yeah, man, it's heavy.
It's heavy.
It's heavy.
It's you can't overlook it. Like you know what I mean. It's such
a
strong poem. And like with Dante, just like you, I don't have anything. Whatever he says, it's
true. We're out. We're out of here.
We're out of here. Marlowe, like I said, with the Marlowe.
I think how I feel about Poe is how you feel about Marlowe.
Right? You
right?
could say that. You could actually, yeah, that's true. But Marlowe is someone I have great respect for.
Of course.
He is on Shakespeare. He is living the life. He is
living the
loving
life.
the life. He's living the life. He has done what
he is.
He was just gold among them, honestly. Like look at all of them, except for like Keats. We wrote down Keats, Poe, T.S. Eliot, Shakespeare, Marlowe, and Dante. All of them had struggle.
Yeah.
Only
were
Shakespeare.
screwed. They were all
Only
screwed.
Shakespeare lived like he
Lived
actually
well.
yeah lived
He
well.
actually lived well.
All of them, and with like even we write poems like you relate to these things.
Of course, man. I mean,
Like what? Okay, how do you talk in your poetry? Like, look, for example, to me, I've always said this because like I've always like in 12th grade when I was reading my Kurdish literature book, I saw this, which I've told you also many times. Khani says that. Tells to the critics that they should be very careful with criticizing because The poets look at the poems as their children, and nobody wants their children to be looked at badly, than to be said that you don't want your child's to be
Exactly.
their reputation to be bad.
Of course.
I've always said that the poems are our children,
Of course.
but I've always said they haunt us. In
They
a way.
do.
Yeah,
They
the poems haunt you.
Like, man, I was thinking the other day, like, there is no such thing as a bad poem. Like, I know we're very critical. Like, personally, we are.
But like you know why we call poems bad? Because we look at them, we go with the logical eye. That's what makes a poem bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
But if you look at it in an emotion, no poet is really, no poem is
right?
really,
They're all lenses. They all give insight into something. much
exactly.
deeper. They're all expressions.
I've always said that poems are the children of the poet,
Yeah,
and I totally agree with
I
Khani,
agree,
and I've always seen my poems as my children.
I'm so
However, honestly, poetry, writing poetry is something I support for everybody to work as a ventilation system.
right?
But however, it's not all sunshine.
No, man. No,
It's
not all
very, very. It haunts you.
It
I've
haunts
always said the poems we write, the children we have, they grow before us.
Yeah, man.
And their children, as an adult, they hurt you.
Yeah, man, they do.
Because they tell you, hey, this happened.
Yeah,
this
man,
was
they're
it.
Like, they're like records of your life.
Yes, and that is very true. I mean, honestly, for many people, even for me and you, we write poems because we want. I don't know about you, but I feel like most of the times we actually want help, but we can't ask it directly.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you would feel weak or something, right?
Yeah, but you just you have it there.
Yeah, you have it there. It's just like, yeah, this is my lens, people. Just put it on and
Here
watch.
here it is, and yeah, that's me.
That's me.
And we are actually so scared
We're very
of the
scared.
information that we
Yeah,
put
the
in the poem. That's why we create so many layers to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, especially you. Now, I'm more direct, but you put so much symbolism there. Like, how the fuck you do that? Why the fuck you do that, right? Stop hurting us.
See, my goal within poetry is to make things very allegorical.
It's very interesting. Like, back when we first met, like one of your poems, I analyzed it, wrote an essay about it even, and at the end of it, you're like, your essay is cool and all, but that's not the point.
That's not the point. You're like, I wrote everything.
I
about
wrote
it.
everything about it, man. I studied it.
No,
But
yeah,
that's not the point,
you're
man.
amazing, but that's.
So why is it? What is it that you're doing? Stop hurting us, man.
You see, it's like it's not like we never open up
Yeah,
to
it's
people
not.
because we have trusted people.
Yeah, we have.
But sometimes we just and honestly, people don't realize this. But honestly, there are points where the poem writing is just not helping it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
It's not your escape anymore.
No, it's not.
Especially when you write too much. You just don't feel it anymore. You're numb. You're writing it.
It's
You're just okay. It's an achievement. Feel like 3 seconds of pride, and that's it.
That's
it's
it.
that's
That's pretty much
that's
it, man.
You don't have anything anymore.
No, not anymore.
But like my goal is, I love allegories. I've told you, whoever doesn't know the definition of allegories, symbolism, metaphors, and allusions, do not be my friend. Do not be my friend. Like,
Good points. Good points.
because that's honestly, that's how I've always seen poetry and then literature. Even in realism, you're the scholar of realism. You know how important how important everyday things, everyday objects become a symbol.
Yeah, a lot. They do become a symbol.
Like in Hemingway, he has this story. I don't remember the title much, but there's this woman. She sees a cat outside in the rain, and she goes and gets
Cat
the
in the Rain.
cat and yes, something. Yeah, I think that
It's a good story, man.
it's so symbolic.
Very symbolic.
It's so symbolic,
very
and
symbolic.
everything, every person, which like it's a very, very, very short story. I had an exam on it. I had a test taking.
man.
Like everything is a symbol in that. The rain, the cat, the man who brings the
hotel.
cat, her husband, herself, the whole setting. Everything in Hemingway is always a
Yeah,
symbol.
even though he wrote about very simple everyday life stuff, like
Honestly, whenever something is very simple, it's there is something behind
something behind it. Like I legit wanted to quote you on that. That's your own quotation. Like you once said to me, like Danner, if anything was too real in literature, it's symbolic.
Everything that is too real in literature is symbolic.
I would agree with that, man.
Because honestly, because you know why? Because they portray these things sometimes as motives. And
man.
for example, a book. A character always has this book.
Yeah.
Maybe she never opens it, but like it's always there.
Always there.
No, that's something.
That is something. It's not there for nothing.
As simple as introduction, and like we all have came across this blue curtain symbolize depression.
Oh, exactly.
You know, that's as simple as real. Like the curtain doesn't talk, the curtains don't move, the curtains don't have feet. They're not fantasized. They're just there.
That's pretty much
Color symbolism. You see,
color symbolism.
that's it.
But that's basically because literature is not the same as our lives. Literature is a reflection of our lives.
I know.
And that reflection usually has more meaning. It's like a mirror showing us ourselves. That's why I find
True.
it very important for
True.
us to read stories and read poetry.
Especially short stories.
Especially short stories, man.
Because
Especially
honestly,
short stories.
novels, some of them they just. But we will come across. We will.
We're not going to Sinclair Lewis here.
No. But like, we will come across novels, of course. But one of my favorite novels, despite Gatsby, is of Mice and Men.
Oh,
Mice and Men
of Mice and Men
hits you in the heart,
straight in the heart.
from the beginning to the conclusion.
From the first line, it hits you in the heart.
And it has it has such a love song thingy, like from T.S. Eliot vibe.
I've always said, like, I respect all literature, but like one of the reasons I respect American literature more is because
They everything they have done is a mic drop.
Yeah, it's like a mic
Everything
drop. It's like-
they have done is a mic drop.
they go deeper.
Not only that, like Poe, for example, he became the master of macabre, and he everything that you see, these authors, they have an influence from him.
Yes, all of them.
Lovecraft, for example, had an influence from Poe, but he was the pillar of a subgenre in horror.
Exactly.
He created it.
Yeah, man, and not to mention detective stories, even science fiction.
Cosmic horror is even more mentioned as Lovecraftian horror than cosmic horror itself.
Yeah, exactly, man, exactly.
You see, Lovecraftian horror, people more understand them more than cosmic horror.
Yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
the thing. And like many more examples. Mark Twain.
Yeah,
Mark Twain.
Hemingway. Eliot was American, although he lived in Britain.
Fitzgerald,
man. Oh.
These people were
Faulkner. Oh, like these people are. I mean, they were observant. That's the thing. They were very observant of their surroundings, and they wrote about it.
we are not degrading, of course,
No,
the
of
British
course not.
literature,
No,
but
British.
this
They have giants.
subjectively to me, it's all American literature all the way.
I so agree. American literature all the way. We would be discussing British and American literature, like we will
go for that also in the pod.
in the future. But for now, our opinion lies with American. But we'll see how it goes.
Anyway, this is pretty much it.
Yeah, I guess we covered everything.
Yeah,
man.
we covered everything.
Well, I guess this is goodbye for this.
Goodbye, people.
Yeah, goodbye, people. Right? For I know we
I
mentioned.
hope this had benefit and you enjoyed this and it didn't bore you.
Exactly. Although we mentioned this would be short, but it seems to be longer.
I guess this is our definition for short.
Yeah, this is our definition for short.
Yeah,
exactly,
this is what we do as an intro of introduction.
All right, people. We hope you enjoyed. We wish you a very good time. We hope you have very sweet dreams if you are listening to this before bed. And
Wow.
we wish you a good morning if you have just woken up and make the decision to wake up.
Okay, that is very...
Right?
Let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Okay, people. Now, please leave in the comments what you thought about this. And if you have questions, just,
Ask.
You can just ask, man. Just ask. Like, ask, or, you can find us on the street.
We are not homeless though, but
You can find us. Like, you just leave a comment. That is simple as that.
I hope you guys enjoyed.
Please share and like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.
Till next podcast.
Till next podcast. Goodbye.